Well, the writing on the wall was clear to me. The world is designed to enslave you as an American man who wasn't born to extremely rich parents, unless you can figure out how to break free from this slavery. And the way you break free is by controlling your time, controlling your money, and controlling your mind and body. Well, the writing on the wall was clear to me back in 2010, 2011. And that writing said the world is designed to enslave you as an American man who wasn't born to extremely rich parents, unless you can figure out how to break free from this slavery. And the way you break free is by controlling your time, controlling your money, and controlling your mind and body. And so ultimately, the path that I decided was going to most efficiently allow me to break free was through Silicon Valley. With what I learned at the hedge fund, I realized that interest rates were going to stay low for a long period of time. A bunch of cheap capital was going to flood into Silicon Valley. A lot of millionaires were going to be created in the process. And I set foot in the Google office in 2011, elevator pitched my way into a job, spent 6 years there before moving on to a cryptocurrency exchange. And my whole time in my 10 years in corporate America, I was just learning more and more about how the whole ecosystem was designed to stress you out, was designed to make you feel anxious, was designed to make you feel depressed. And the tools that I developed as a professional athlete allowed me to stand out relative to my peers in that, yes, it did bother me, and it bothered me quite a bit, but it didn't bother me to a debilitating point like it did many of my peers. And ultimately, when I joined my cryptocurrency exchange, I realized that if I wanted to stay employable in the space, I needed to grow a social media following. And it just so happened that the social media following that I grew around what I was doing from a hobby standpoint in health and fitness and mindset and personal development was actually way more interesting to my audience than anything that I had to say about tech or anything that I had to say about the crypto space. And so ultimately, the opportunity became presented to me, where people started coming to me asking me, hey, can you coach me? And I never thought that I'd be in a position to be a business coach or a consigliere or a life coach or consultant or a personal trainer for that matter. But the opportunity presented itself to me because I ended up being good in ways that people couldn't envision someone could be good. And so now I find that the easiest way for me to affect the most people is to take the mental models that I built over those 15 years and help implant them in the lives of my clients, helping them improve their mind, their body, their brokerage account, as well as their businesses.
That's fantastic. And Alex, one of the things I first want to touch on, and I don't know if it's a trait amongst baseball players. I have a lot of friends and those that have embraced the sport of baseball and have gotten to the collegiate level or further, all tend to have a system process, like a system mind process. I understand when it comes to the success in the game, what I used to not like about baseball. I will admit, growing up, baseball used to bore me. As I got older, grew that understanding. My issue was so many things had to happen in order for a score to happen, right? You could have hits, you could have a whole inning, and nothing happens. The score doesn't change. But when I understood the nuance and the process of baseball, that's where my appreciation for the game came into play. And what I hear you breaking down is an established process to life in which you built frameworks, strategies, mindsets, coupled with your work ethic and your hobbies that led to success. Something you said is the world is designed to enslave you. As an American man, a lot of folks listening to this can relate to that. They're working their 9 to 5. They got the sales position. They got the title. They got the management role. They're making the money. They're paying for a house they can barely spend time in because they're stuck at work. And while they're enjoying the financial successes that they've always wanted, quite frankly, Alex, they don't feel free. So I want to harp on that term. You said the world is designed to enslave you, and maybe pull that thread a little bit and unravel what you mean by that. And then we can work through the processes and how the men listening can find their freedom.
Yeah. So think about this. Like if you run a team, you will get compensated based on your ability to maximize the productivity of that team. Well, guess what? You're not the only person who has a compensation set up just like that. In fact, everybody in your company has a compensation set up like that. So if you take that to the nth degree, what does maximizing the output of your team look like? And what does maximizing the profit of your team look like? Well, what it looks like is figuring out a way to have them produce a lot for as little compensation as they'll possibly accept. right? And so I think a lot of people on Wall Street joke that their bonus was $1 larger than it had to be in order for them not to quit. And there's actually entire teams at multinational corporations whose job it is to figure out what is the dollar amount at which you will not quit unless we paid you $1 less. And they will pay you that amount. Now, obviously, not everybody has a job like that. A lot of people are fortunate where, they've found their way into higher paying jobs that aren't as stressful. But by and large, the reason why compensation consultants exist, one main reason why HR departments exist, is to minimize the cost of corporate employment. And so you have entire teams, if you're at a large company, figuring out how they can get you dependent on the company. So I learned this when I was at Google, where they set up their internal system in a way that maximized the leverage that the company had over the employee and minimized the leverage that the employee had over the company. Now, most people aren't perceptive to these changes, but if you actually spend a lot of time figuring out why are these HR rules in place? Why am I not allowed to get a more competitive offer internally if I have a team internally that wants me more? And if you have a background in economics and you have a background in markets like I do, you understand that the entire setup, from your individual team to your large company, and in some ways to the way the tax structure works, is to get you dependent on people who are barely paying you enough to live a decent life and get you dependent on them for as long as possible. And so, the writing was on the wall for me. Why does this rule exist? Oh, it's to keep you in the system to minimize your ability to free yourself.
Yeah. Sound like me and not being a good employee where you get in trouble for asking the dangerous questions. Like, Ted, we don't talk about that. And there are some people who start to notice that, and they're looking around. And if you're listening to this podcast, speaking to the audience directly now, you probably are of the same mindset. And the thing I noticed, I work in TV. I'm a morning meteorologist. I love what I do. I get paid to be myself. However, there's still a time I need to be there, a time where the show's on, a time where the show's off. And I remember when it was years ago, I was my now wife, I was just dating her, and her sister, her birthday's in February when this episode's coming out, right? Probably the Super Bowl. Either is just happening or just happened for folks listening. And this was way back, I think 2016, 2017. It was my sister-in-law's birthday. Haven't met her at the time. And I wanted to go to New York to see it. Our specific show was going to be airing the day after the Super Bowl, and I was told no. And that's the day I realized I'm a grown-ass man asking for permission to go to a birthday party, and I was just told no. Very minuscule, very small, and some might call me petty, but that didn't sit well with me. And that's the day I recognized that I need to embrace entrepreneurship, self-development, and find ways to gain my freedom and autonomy in a way that I don't have to go through this again. So for any of the guys who are listening who could relate to my story, or they ask the same questions as you mentioned, like, hey, this internal team wants me. It's also something I went through while I was in high school working at a amusement park, Alex. A ride operator, the games department wanted me as a manager, and I wasn't allowed to switch over to make more money and oversee others. Interesting. Left that job pretty quick. So for anybody who's picking up what we're laying down, what are some of the ways you gained your freedom or your autonomy from this system designed to enslave those who aren't intuitive enough as yourself to kind of pick up on the signs?
I had to even the score. And so, if entire department is designed to maximize my productivity and minimize my compensation, it's my responsibility to minimize the inputs that I'm giving to the company and maximize the compensation that I'm extracting. Basically, if you're not figuring out how to do as little work as possible for as much compensation as possible, then you're just going to lose that battle. The scrimmage line is going to get pushed back every quarter you're there, until you're to your eyeballs in work and barely saving enough to survive a layoff. And so I realized that when I'm working at a company, I have what I can take with me and I have what they can get. And ultimately, I want to maximize what I can take with me. What can I take with me? I can take with me relationships. I can take with me money. I can take with me my health. I can also lose my health. And so a lot of times when people get into stressful situations, they sacrifice their health. They work a little bit harder. They skip time at the gym because work is really tough and I have so much that I need to get done. Well, guess what? If they end up getting forced out of that role, and the writing might have been on the wall for months that you're going to get forced out of that role no matter what you did. Part of me figuring out how the was laid is realizing that a lot of times people succeed due to the seat that they're sitting in, not necessarily due to their competence. And a lot of people fail due to the seat that they're sitting in, not necessarily due to their competence. And what ends up needing to happen is the next seat that you're interviewing for, you need to be able to position yourself as the most competent person you possibly can. Well, guess what? Your resume is just a piece of paper, and there's a lot of words on a piece of paper, and everybody else is going to give a resume with words on a piece of paper. But the way you present yourself physically is a multiplier that your evaluator lays over the resume that they're reading. So if you're a high energy person, you're in shape, you speak well, and your resume is 8.5 out of 10, 9 out of 10, but you get a 2x multiplier because of how you present yourself, well, you're going to score a 17 or 18 out of 10. Whereas the guy whose resume might be a 9 out of 10, but he looks tired, he looks overweight, he doesn't speak well, he's not confident. Well, that guy might get a 0.5 multiplier, and all of a sudden he's viewed as a 0.4 or a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Well, who's going to be in a better position to get that job? It's the person who looks healthy. So you never want to sacrifice your health for money, particularly if it's money that's made for somebody else. You want to be as selfish as possible if you're working for a multinational corporation. Now, the rules change a little bit if you're working with friends or smaller companies, people that you can have longer term relationships with. I do not advise people to be as selfish and sociopathic as possible when engaging with those types of companies and individuals. But if you're at a company with 1,000 people or more, yeah, they're trying to screw you over. And if you're not trying to get them back, you're going to lose the game.